Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us this evening for such a wonderful panel that we're going to have. As you're already aware, today we are having a panel, a webinar to commemorate the 75th anniversary of UN with the theme, The Future We Want, the UN We Need, reaffirming our collective commitment to multilateralism. So we want to celebrate this auspicious event through this webinar, this discussion that we are going to have today. We are very much excited today because we have panelists, wonderful panelists, who will be speaking on their insightful experiences and then their thoughts for in terms of Indigenous people's contribution. Before we go into the panel, I would like to remind everyone to stay muted during the whole presentations. And we are going to have, I would like to introduce the program a little bit before we go into the actual program. For agenda item 1, we are going to have welcome and highlights from Ms. Nuyang Rai from Youth for Environment, Education and Development Foundation, YFEED. After that, we are going to have a group screenshot photo. This is a very unusual and a specialty from YFEED. I've never experienced this in other webinars, so let's so that we have a record of everyone who participate in this wonderful webinar. We would like to have a record. So we would request everyone to turn on your camera for that section. And after that, we will have the panel discussion. We have 5 wonderful panelists from different countries. I will introduce them shortly. We will have 40 minutes for that presentations to listen to our speakers. And then after that, we're going to have the Q&A session, an interactive session with all the participants. And that will be followed by a vote of thanks, synthesis, and call for actions. So, for our first agenda item, I would like to welcome Ms. Nuyang Rai from YFEED for welcome and highlights. Nuyang, the floor is yours.
Namaskar and hello everyone. My name is Nuyang Rai. I'm a program intern at YFEED Foundation. Youth for Environment, Education and Development Foundation is a non-profit organization that has been continuously working in the sector of inclusive education, human rights, achieving sustainable development goals, and environmental conservation, especially focusing on indigenous groups, women, and youth as primary stakeholders in the society building. Indigenous people are the holders of unique languages, knowledge systems and beliefs, and possess invaluable knowledge of practices for sustainable management of natural resources. While indigenous people own, occupy, or use a quarter of the world's surface area, they safeguard 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity. Indigenous youth are among the most vulnerable groups in the world and are particularly at risk for human trafficking, sexual and labor exploitation, and other forms of human rights abuses. Youth are our future, and we must take global action to protect their rights, their well-being, and their survival. This is why we have gathered together with our 5 amazingly talented speakers to discuss the engagement of Indigenous youth for global action. We have Ms. Adi Mariana Waka. Ms. Waka is the founder of Funilaki Book Club, Fiji. Our second speaker is Ms. Chandra Tripura. Ms. Chandra is the founder and director at Hill Resource Center, HRC. Following Ms. Chandra is Mr. Ajan Chakma. Mr. Ajan is a documentation officer at Kapaing Foundation, KF, Bangladesh. We also have Ms. Mahesweta Alice Tika with us today. Ms. Tika is a social performance management in charge at Sampan Finserv Private Limited, India. Finally, we have Mr. Kerika Vicent, who is an Executive Director at Action for Change, Tanzania. I hope through this webinar, we all can share and exchange information and learn something new. Thank you so much. And now on to you, Ms. Mai.
Thank you very much, Nuyang, for your welcome and introducing the speakers. Now we are going to have the group screenshot photo session. So I would like to request all the participants to turn on your camera and show your beautiful face with big smile so that we can have a record of our participation here in this session. Okay, we still have a number. Okay, great. Wow. So who is taking care of the camera?
We have our team, so please don't worry.
Okay, great. Okay.
So are you doing fine?
No, please. I mean, it would be good if someone from the team.
What about we do some hand gestures if we must? Yeah, everybody.
This is a peace sign. Okay.
Yeah. What's up?
Okay.
Thank you very much, sister.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Also for showing your beautiful faces. So we will go into the panel discussion. So the first speaker that we are going to have is Ms. Adi Mariana Waka, founder of Vanilaki Book Club from Fiji. Mariana Waka currently works in child protection with the Pacific Conference of Churches. She started a book club in February 2018 in a settlement community in Suva. She promotes literacy and books as a vital tool of education, of broadening children's imagination and building self-esteem. We operate out of a small church. They operate out of a small church and recently began to hold reading sessions in hand with COVID restrictions. Her work and life has always been inspired by a curiosity to understand God and to serve those who are in need. So, Ms. Adi, the floor is yours. Oops. Okay, I think we need to change because due to some technical problems. Do we have Adi here yet? No. Okay, so I think due to some technical problems, a few of our speakers haven't been able to join us yet, but we will come to Ms. Adi again to listen to the wonderful stories from her. Next, I would like to invite, is Chandra with us? Chandra. Okay, so then we will start with Bangladesh. Mr. Arjun Chakma. Arjun with us, right? Okay, great. Thank you very much. So I will introduce a few very important points about you first. So Mr. Arjun Chakma is a young Indigenous human rights professional working for Hills and Plainland Indigenous communities in Bangladesh. He was a part of the fact-finding investigation team against illegal stone extraction in Bandarban Hill District, which is a highly militarized zone in his country. He cares about climate change because he strongly believes Indigenous peoples have a special connection with their natural environment. He's also passionate about the inclusiveness of Indigenous peoples as a vital part of the wave of development in Bangladesh. Arjun, thank you very much for being with us, and the floor is yours. Yes. And then I would like to request all other brothers and sisters to mute our camera so that, that we can see Arjun Chakma in full version. Thank you very much.
It's clear, right? You can hear.
Yes, great, great. Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. And thank you for having me. Sorry, give this some seconds. Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today.
Hello.
And also thank you for like preparing this kind of and conducting this kind of webinars. And also, I also would like to thank you, the other panelists and the other people who is right now they're helping us. And so if I particularly talk about the indigenous peoples in Bangladesh, if I especially talk about the indigenous youth right now, like we're having kind of a transitional problem right now, as we see due to the pandemic. This lots of indigenous youths have to be right now, like unemployment is increasing day by day. So especially this COVID-19 situation during the lockdowns and after the lockdowns. So
Hello, Mr. Chakma.
yes.
Your voice is very low. Can you adjust your microphone? Yeah, earphone?
Hello.
Yeah,
You can.
yeah, it's clear
So
now.
let me turn off the fan. I think it will be better. So the thing is that due to the pandemic, the non-formal sector, those who are working with the non-formal sectors, especially the youths, in like household workers, those who are working in the metropolitan area of Dhaka, those who are working in the non-formal sectors like household workers, and those who are working in beauty parlors, especially the girls and women who are working in the beauty parlors and in the government factories. So what is happening with that is they, due to the lockdown, they right now they are in their native places. So we know that the indigenous people regions are already in a kind of like socio-economical problem is there. So after coming back to the home and their native lands, so there is no such kind of economic empowerment and economic facilities, and due to lack of resources, so they're facing lots of like financial problems and other things. So right now lots of indigenous peoples, those who are working with NGOs and like us, Chandra is also was also there, I was also in that team. So we made a crowdfunding team to organize some kind of webinars and other things to make the people more connected to each other. So with that crowdfunding, we made some kind of almost 9,000 US dollars to provide some shelters and livelihood stuffs and the pandemic kits like masks and other things to the vulnerable communities, those who are residing in very deep forest areas. So the thing is that we saw that the problem with that thing is that when you want to work with those indigenous peoples, the people, because 80% to 90% indigenous communities and peoples are, they're not connected with any kind of like communication facilities, like they don't have even phones and other like they kind of without communication they're still living there. So even Bangladesh government also trying lots of initiatives towards the peoples with the indigenous communities also. But the thing is that those resources are not going directly to the indigenous communities. Somewhere they're stopped somewhere, and people are not getting those facilities and resources to for their livelihoods and this thing. So when we see also, if we talk about the recent situations over here, is that the indigenous youths right now, the uh, socially they're like having some problems. So that's why we trying to do some like psychosocial debriefing sessions with indigenous youths and those who working in education, education initiatives, those who are taking. So we are connecting with those people to have some discussions and talking with indigenous people's issues. So
Hello, Mr. Chakma. Can you raise your voice? Yeah, maybe the earphone is
hello.
not working properly. Yeah,
Hello.
yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. So recently, what happened is our indigenous peoples are still in kind of representation. In kind of under representation situation is happening because they can be seen anywhere in those kind of initiatives like or whatever is government and the NGOs, but their limitations is very high. That's why they can't like most of the indigenous youth, those who want to work with the indigenous peoples, they can't directly work with those initiatives because they're just shown as kind of token there. So that is a like a problem with us over here in Chittagong Hill Tracts. And if we talk about plainland indigenous peoples in Bangladesh, so there is kind of like insufficient financial resources. So due to that, those indigenous youths right now who are taking kind of personal initiatives, like they're making some kind of foods and they're delivering those foods to others and they're earning some kind of money. But those things are very limited. So I think the government should take some necessary steps towards those who are at least trying to become an entrepreneur right now, because they never thought this type of problem will be approaching towards us, and we will be having this kind of problems like especially this lockdown. So everything is stopped over here, and as usually we know that indigenous peoples and especially the youths are already deprived of lots of things, especially the socio-economical issues. So the situation, this pandemic situation makes them like more than that like 2-3 times the problems became like huge to the indigenous peoples. So we should know about the problems. So one more thing I want to discuss, the last one, uh, this indigenous initiatives have to be more vast. So that's why the NGOs and other like government initiatives, they should take care of the indigenous youth who are trying to do some works, and they're those who are working and supporting indigenous communities in their native places. So they have to government and NGOs, they should find those particular peoples and make a platform and work with them. So I believe soon the government and NGO initiatives will find them and work with them also. Thank you. Hello.
Um,
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Arjun. Thank you very much for for the discussion, and especially for your discussing your contributions for the rights of for promoting the rights of indigenous peoples. Yes, it is really true that indigenous peoples are still very much underrepresented, and there are still a number of challenges that we are facing. And at the same time, we are really hopeful because indigenous youths like you yourself are contributing a lot for the promotion and protection of the rights of vulnerable people. So thank you very much, and also congratulations for your work. And we will come again to you for the questions. Thank you very much. So next, I would like to invite Ms. Mahiswita Alice Tiga, a social performance management in charge, Sambat FinServe Limited. So to introduce Mahiswita Alice Tiga, she's a social performance management in charge in Samband FinServe Private Limited, Odisha, India. Prior to this, she has experience of 1 year working in an NGO, Jashpur Jan Vikas Sanstha, Chhattisgarh, India, There, she has worked as a project coordinator for a UNICEF project titled Addressing Child Trafficking in Jashpur District. She has already completed her master's in social work, specialized in labor welfare and human resource management from the Bhopal School of Social Science, Madhya Pradesh, India. So I would like to invite Mahishweta. Miss, the floor is yours. Hello? I think there was a connection problem. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hello, Mahishweta, are you with us? Okay, Mahi.
Am
Great.
I audible?
Okay, thank you. Yes, the floor is yours, please.
Okay. Johar to all. I'm Maheshweta Alistiga from India, and I have been working as a social performance management in charge in Samban FinServe Private Limited in Odisha in India again. As the topic for today's discussion is Indigenous youth engagement for global action, I would first like to throw light on the statistics of Indigenous youth in India. The total population of the country is 1.38 billion. And there are around 104 million tribal people of 500 different tribes, accounting to 8.6% of India's population. Now, talking about the global action, there are various things that can be discussed looking into the present situation, like the economy, health, and environment. And when it comes to the indigenous youth, the question arises that how many of the youth are really concerned about all these? Does the young population ponder or discuss among themselves about the present situation or about the upcoming crises that we may face? Now, if we talk about the economy of the country, we see that there are a number of unemployed youth. It is one reason is because some get drop out from their educational institution, or if they are well qualified, they don't get job in their specific field. Another aspect of economic crisis is that presently we are getting everything in a very high price. The cost of Am I audible?
Yes, Mahi.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am,
you
please,
are.
please, go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah, so can we continue?
please, please.
Okay, so I was talking about the economic crisis that is presently going on because everything that we receive is in a very high price. Even the basic necessity things that comes in a very high price, we have to pay higher price for everything. One reason for this price hike is that the demand and consumption is much more than the availability. we do not focus in conserving things, whether it is related to finance or nature. Other reason for price hike is that everything gets so much modified. For example, the food which we eat is mostly processed, after which it adds up to the cost, but we do not realize that the essence and the nutrition value has diminished, has decreased. Then talking in terms of health, we see that today's generation falls ill very frequently, very often. But in olden days, if we see people of olden days, they were way more fitter earlier. Now, this is because of the food habit which we have today. This has deteriorated the immunity system of our body. And now that there is a pandemic situation, we can all see and we can all experience how our immunity is weakened and how we fall ill every now and then. Then talking about environment, we need not explain much because we all are experiencing drastic changes in climate and weather condition. Now, all these issues, what can today's youth come up with for all these issues? Now, like I talked about economic issues that I already mentioned earlier, if the youth is unemployed, then they can come up with their own startup, which will also help to sustain their own culture. They can keep up their own culture. For health aspect, if we consume organic food, we can actually gain more nutrition, more nourishment, and this would help the younger generation to emphasize on taking up natural food. This will not only help them to keep ourselves healthy, but it would also help them to give value or sustain the cultural food and the culture of tribal people. Then in terms of environment, it is said that a tribal is the best person to understand and value the environment. Now, this is because we do understand how much the environment or how much the nature gives us and how much they protect us. We do understand that if these things are diminished, this will disrupt the whole ecosystem. Now, the nature gives us so much and we should conserve it. Now, whether we receive it, we receive so much from the environment, and yes, of course, we do a lot to protect all these. And because we somewhere understand that if these things extinct, we are at loss. We will diminish and gradually everything will be extinct. So if we say the youth today they can play a major role of influencing or of motivating people so that we sustain and we keep up everything safe. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahi, for the great presentation. And you brought up so many important and interesting points about Indigenous youths in India. And I think that is very much related to the experience from other parts of the world. And you brought not only the challenges that we are facing, but also the solutions, contributions of Indigenous youths for different sectors, including for cultural revitalization and cultural promotion, and for the sustainability of our food systems and to live in harmony with nature. So thank you very much. All those contributions are really, really great for us. Thank you very much. So we will go next to
My Chandra is here.
Okay, great. So Chandra, welcome. A very busy lady. So finally you are with us. So thank you for being with us. And before going to the panel, I would like to introduce a bit on Chandra Tripura. So Chandra Tripura is a young, enthusiastic human rights activist and social entrepreneur from the Tripura indigenous peoples of Chittagong Hill Tracts, Bangladesh. She has started defending Indigenous people's rights, culture, and tradition through dance performances from the year 2008 and co-founded Bangladesh Indigenous Cultural Forum in 2010. Currently, she is playing the role of General Secretary and Artistic Director in the organization. She has introduced how Indigenous peoples dance can be a strong tool for advocacy for protecting and establishing Indigenous peoples' rights in Bangladesh. In 2017, she joined CHT Hetman Network, a capacity building and leadership development organization of the traditional and customary leaders in CHT, and its two wings, Women Hetman Kabari Network and CHT Youth Hetman Kabari Network as coordinator. She is a member of the Council of Leaders of Asia Young Indigenous Peoples Network based in Philippines and country representative of Asia Indigenous Youth Platform. Her social enterprise, Hill Resource Center, established in 2017, is a multi-purpose initiative to contribute towards culture and development in CHD. So, Chandra, the floor is yours, and you have 10 minutes for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such wonderful introduction. I'd like to thank Youth for Environmental Education and Development Foundation for organizing this wonderful webinar and having me here. While talking about Indigenous youth engagement for global action, I would like to thank Global Indigenous Youth Caucus through our sister Martin Yumon, our brother Anish, and also our sister Aisha, who are representative from Asia, and they representing us in the platform. I would like to thank GIYC because they have been representing all the Indigenous youths in the UN level, in the international level, from the very beginning of UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. If we talk about the global action and then youth engagement in that action, we must acknowledge about the youth engagement, youth movement in the local level, because our ultimate solutions we have to find in our roots. That's what I believe. And during this pandemic, I also believe that our Indigenous young, especially I've seen and realized that with the situation of CHT, what happened in CHT, that many Indigenous youth who live in the city areas who are, who have to leave their roots and their community for job purpose and for education and for other interests, they have to go back to their communities again due to this pandemic situation, and they are realizing and trying to find a way to find solution for their creating self-employment and they're also trying to be connected with Indigenous movement, although those movement are not political directly, but other social movements, cultural movements, they're still trying to stick to their communities and find solution for their own self and for the nation as well. So I think when we talk about the youth movement, I can recall from I've seen that from my childhood that and listen so many stories from my parents and from other elders who are our senior activists who have worked for our communities for the rights of Indigenous peoples in my country. Those who have started the movement in our country, in Bangladesh, especially if I particularly say about the Chittagong Hill Tracks movement for the rights of Indigenous communities, I would like to recognize our great leader, Manobendra Narayan Larma, and his brother, our current leader, who is the chairperson of Janashanghati Samiti, of the Chittagong Hill Treks, Mr. Jyotirendra Bodhipriya Larma, because they have shown, they has given us an example of how to be engaged and fight for our own communities and raise our voice to establish our rights in within the country and outside as well in the international arena. So I believe that youth can do everything, and youth is the ultimate hope who can bring the solution for any communities, whether it can be a political problem solution, or it can be the solution of environment, culture, and economic matters. We just need to stick together. We just need to be united in our national level, in the starting from the grassroots level, national level, regional and international, and of course in the global level. And I would like to request the IYC to include and try to get connected with more with the national level indigenous youths and their organizations to achieve our rights in country level and as well as in the international arena. And of course, what I feel that we still, the Bangladesh indigenous youths and their organization, we still need to find a way to bridge with the international youth movement, including organizations, platforms, and the individuals, of course. What I feel that our grassroots, there are many youths and individuals and organizations who are working to establish our rights in the country. We still have that gap with the international, body, with the international, with the body of indigenous youth who are rooted to keep our environment, our culture, our forest, for our next generation, which is in this year or in this era, we can see that UN is talking about the Sustainable Development Goal, and they are trying to achieve those goals. But our indigenous ancestors, our indigenous elders, they have been, practicing and doing those things and trying to keep and they have been maintaining all those things for centuries. So, what I believe is if the government of all the United States and the governments, try to recognize their indigenous communities in their respective countries, there is nothing wrong, or there is nothing gonna happen if they recognize us. This is what, through this webinar, I would like to, request and urge to our government to, to give us the right for self-identity through establishing, through recognizing our identity as indigenous in the Constitution. And I hope I will be able to get, more sometimes for the question answer period. I hope this is for this section, and I will try to talk more about later. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chandra, for the great presentation. And it's really great that you have been leading all these different movements already among indigenous youths and also indigenous women. So I think it's really important, even among indigenous youths, then the contribution of indigenous women is still very important. And you also highlighted the importance of connecting with the movements, international movement that is going on at the international level, regional level, and at the country level. So I think this will also be a very great takeaway message for all the participants. Thank you very much for your contribution. So next, I would like to invite Ms. Adi Mariana Waka. Mariana Waka currently works in child protection with the Pacific Conference of Churches She started a book club in February 2018 in a settlement community in Suva. She promotes literacy and books as a vital tool of education, of broadening children's imagination and building self-esteem. They operate out of a small church and recently began to hold reading sessions in hand with COVID-19 restrictions. Her work and life has always been inspired to serve those who are in need. With that, I would like to invite our sister, Mariana Waka. Sister, the floor is yours.
Bulavinaka, everyone. Thank you for the kind introduction this evening. First of all, I do have a PowerPoint presentation that I would like to share as I speak. So if I can just open that up right now. Okay. So good morning, everyone around the world. So I am here to speak about Indigenous youth here in Fiji. One of the things that we have started in the last few years is Vunilangi Book Club. I founded this book club because I saw that there was a literacy problem here in the country, especially amongst our Indigenous people. So as a young person at the time in 2017, I wanted to know what I could do and how I could gather young people to work towards becoming good ancestors for the next generation of young Indigenous people here in Fiji, but not only for our Indigenous people here. Fiji has a population of Indo-Fijians who were brought here as indentured laborers. And so there have been tensions over the last 30 years where we've had coups and political instabilities. And what we wanted to do through this book club is to bring together, as Indigenous young people, to bring together the different ethnic groups and be a catalyst for multiculturalism here in Fiji. Vunilangi Book Club is, so we just have a map of where we are there on the down there in the South Pacific. So as I mentioned before, it's a mix of ethnic groups, Indigenous Fijians. I am from the Isokula tribe in the northern islands of Fiji. And then we have the Indo-Fijian people here as well. We have had a history of political instability due to racial tensions. And as an Indigenous Fijian, I want for our young people to change the culture that has happened over the last 30 years to become a country that is more works towards being more inclusive and changing how the next generation of Fijians view ourselves, and also to have the next generation of young Fijians also be able to speak up for Indigenous rights, because at this current time, a lot of our environment, natural resources are actually being mined. We have a lot of deforestation happening up in the northern parts of Fiji. And so, but the problem is our youth and our young children, because of the cultures that we have, they don't necessarily have a voice to speak up. So we are trying to use literacy as a tool for young people to have the confidence, to have the self-esteem, to be informed, and to be able to articulate not only their views and opinions, but to be able to articulate the stories with which our ancestors and our peoples have brought with us over the last 2 millenniums here in this country. So these are just a few pictures that we have of the children within the book club. It's been running for 3 years. It'll be 3 years at the end of this year. So Vunilangi is a Fijian word, an indigenous Fijian word for the which means horizon. And I went with this word Vunilangi because as it means horizon, for me, it meant that we are looking towards the future and seeing what is the future going to look like, especially for our indigenous young people. What will the future look like for them? If they are illiterate, if they cannot express themselves or articulate themselves, what is that going to look like? Does that mean that when big foreign nationals, big foreign companies come in here, that they just exploit or just use these young people in the future because they do not have a voice, they cannot speak up for themselves because they're not able to articulate information or their own stories or expressions of identity as Fijian people. The main objective of the book club is to promote literacy. Like many indigenous cultures around the world, Fijians have an oral tradition passed through what we call talanoa, rituals, traditions, poetry, and songs. Our indigenous knowledge are also recorded in our dances and artifacts. The importance of literacy is that we are able to articulate to the modern world, the globalized world, the importance and the richness of what our indigenous knowledge and cultures bring into this modern setting. So that's why we try to promote literacy. It is problematic at this stage. We have about 33 to 34% literacy rate in the English vernacular. And that is something that even the education system is struggling with right now in this country. The Indo-Fijians who came in, their history with us is almost about 200 years now. They did come in with their own writings and books, and so there is much that our indigenous people can also learn from our Indo-Fijian brothers and sisters. The community that we work in is a settlement of about 300 families here on the outskirts of the capital of Suva. It's a mixed ethnic and religious community, and it backs onto the sea, the Suva Point Beach, which has high tides and heavy rains that flood the area. There isn't proper sewerage, water, or electricity in a lot of the parts of the community, and there are many social problems that also exist within Nanuku settlement. So in the reading sessions that we hold, we really try to teach the children who come, because they're vulnerable children, they're surrounded by a lot of social issues, is that books and reading, knowing how to read, can empower you as a young Indigenous, a young Indo-Fijian child who will grow into a youth and hopefully become future leaders of our country. Let me just move through this just because of time. Part of our work also includes, as well as reading, we promote the alternative space for children in this squatter settlement, to know the power that comes through reading and books, that you can begin your life in a settlement like Nanuku where there are so many issues, but the thing is that through books and reading, you can be in that place, but your mind can travel and you can learn about different peoples, learn about different stories, train up your imagination so that you can break through the mindsets that exist in the community. These are some of the challenges that Indigenous young people here in Fiji have, is breaking through mindsets that tell them that they are not good enough, that they don't have a voice, that what they have to say is not important enough. And so we try to really utilize literacy as a tool of empowerment through our reading sessions. As well as working in the urban community, we also do work in the rural community villages, which is where the majority of our Indigenous groups are. We do have 3 book clubs existing to the north of Fiji. It's about a day's trip by sea and land. up into the mountainous area of Koromakawa, where mothers have taken on this idea that reading and books can empower their children and prepare them for a future that we may not really know or understand at this time. So we just have, this is one of our poetry competitions that we held in a rural community, as well as Koromakawa, which is quite far away from the capital. So our objectives are to promote the importance of reading, partnership with local and diasporic organizations and communities, which we have had great support from around the world, provide support and resources to grassroots initiatives in rural communities, provide children's books that are contextualized to Fiji and the Pacific region. This is something that we have great challenges with, because we don't have many writers on our side of the world, but it is something that we are hoping through our work at the grassroots levels that we can begin to promote reading as well as writing our stories and children's books, so that our children can see themselves within these books rather than just different people in the books that we currently have. So these are just some of the activities that we have with the children. We promote arts, drawing, creativity. That is something that we really try to get the children just to express themselves. They now begin to, many of the children are now reading. They get up and they speak, they express what they learned from the books, what they liked or disliked. So now in the beginning, where the children were not speaking much, we had to do all the talking. Now we can't seem to get the children to stop talking about the books that they read, or sharing the pieces of writing that they write about. We went on a 2-month hiatus this year due to the COVID. When Fiji went into lockdown, I called a break on reading sessions, which existed for 2 months. We did not enter into the community for about 2 months. And the reports back from the community was that the children were just left unattended and just not focused, and they really needed us to come back into the community. So after our lockdown had finished, we re-entered into the community, and a month before school started, we held 4 consecutive Saturdays of reading sessions to help prepare the children to return to class. As well as that, with the COVID context, many of the parents lost their jobs or had their hours reduced. And so we assisted with supporting 30 children through a lunch program. And we reached out to our diasporic communities outside of our country to help fund the food that we would feed these 30 children so that they could go to school. That was the most important thing for us. Nowadays, the older children are involved in our reading sessions. We also now have them borrowing books as well as writing book reviews. Our senior group do that. And after every reading session, a piece of fruit is given to them so that they can, a piece of fruit, or sometimes we have like a lolly or something just as a treat before they head back home. So for the work that we do in this book club is really to show the next generation of young Indigenous people, as well as our Indo-Fijian sisters and brothers, that we can be good ancestors, that what we are doing right now is that we are looking, just as our ancestors looked from their times to see how they could survive so that our parents, grandparents, and ourselves could one day come to life and do the work that we are currently doing. We are looking through Vunilangi Book Club to sow the seeds of hope and sow the seeds of justice in some case, so that these children, the next generations to come, are prepared for a world that they might not be necessarily prepared for right now because of the problem, the issue and challenge of illiteracy. So our hope the young team that we currently have in operating Vunilangi Book Club, our hope is that the seed that we sow today for these young children, that it will bear fruit in their generation, and that they will be able to do work as they become the future leaders of this country, to then sow seeds for generations to come as well. And we promote our work because we think that this is something that can be replicated in communities, not only around our region, but even around the world, for grassroots initiatives such as ours to take place, because we want to see the young children in our communities to be empowered, and to be able to articulate themselves in a world that sometimes silences them as Indigenous and as marginalized or minority people. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mariana, for the great sharing. It's really, really touching, and I think you highlighted a lot about the importance of local actions. Even when it comes to education, the work that you're doing is really important, because it's not only about empowering them in terms of literacy, but also decolonizing the education that has caused us being as more of like second-class citizens or second-class members of the world because of belonging to Indigenous communities. But you have been doing this great work, and you have proved a lot that we need to, even when we think globally and while we are trying to build a strong network among ourselves globally and regionally, but still the actions need to be very much local, and things and all these learnings need to be contextualized so that Indigenous children and young people have meaningful learning from these programs. So thank you very much for the great sharing. And I'm sure that this will also be a great learning for many of the participants today. So after hearing from all the speakers, now we are moving towards the next session, question and answer session. So due to the time constraint, we might need to shorten the session a little bit before we allocated 20 minutes for that, but we might need to reduce a bit to 15 minutes. So now is the time for interaction. So if we have any participants who is interested to share your ideas, share your inputs, or ask questions from our panelists, because you have heard a number of great works that different Indigenous youths are doing in their own communities. So please feel free to raise any questions, or if you think that it will be a bit difficult to summarize your question, please feel free to type it in the chat box so that we can save time and we can let more people to speak. So the floor is yours, and this is time for your interaction. If you have any questions or any thoughts that you would like to share based on the inputs that was just made. So for the first round, we will collect 3 questions first. So if you have questions, please type it in the chat box, or please raise your hand. Yeah, you can raise your hand there. Okay, we have one question here. I think this is for all the speakers. So after responding to this question, all the speakers will have 3 minutes each for final remarks. So the question here is, I am Sima Upatye from Advisory Group on Community Action Secretariat, Population Foundation of India, Delhi. We are working on supporting state governments in implementing approaches to community action on health. It will be interesting to understand how Indigenous peoples can be mobilized under the program. So please, I would like to invite the speakers to respond to the question. And we will have 2 minutes to respond to this question.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again once?
Okay. Oh my God, I've lost the question.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Okay, someone who asked the question is from India, and they are working on supporting state governments in implementing approaches to community action on health. It will be interesting to understand how Indigenous people can be mobilized to participate in the program.
Okay. The thing is that, sorry, what's her name?
From India.
Okay, from India. Okay. Anyway, the thing is that if we see in Bangladesh context, like the Bangladesh and India are in same phase. If we talk about this like health issue, health problems and other things, especially if we talk about the women's reproductive health. So, see, we are working, everyone working with indigenous peoples and communities in plain land and the hilly areas also in Bangladesh. But no one talks much about the women's like reproductive health needs. So I think it should be raised over here also, especially during this kind of webinars and other things. See, the last time I have visited so many places in my native land. So what I've seen, they don't know even the sanitary napkins also. They don't even know about those stuffs. So just think about the situation over here. So if we like, as a youth, and as kind of pioneer of the communities, indigenous communities, we can do one thing, like we need some kind of awareness, particularly on that, especially on that, like women reproductive health kits. Even last time also, I'm trying to make a crowdfunding group to help with those issues in Chittagong Hill Tracts, especially for the reproductive health needs, like distributing some dignity kits, which will be containing sanitary napkins, soap, towels, and other hygiene stuffs. So that's why. So the government, if we talk about particularly India also, see, governments are not giving, they will not give you the resource directly towards you. You have to raise your voice. So we are also working with that thing also. So it's very difficult to directly asking about those issues and other things. We have to raise our voice first, and collectively we can do that. Thank you.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Sister, can I respond to the question? Yeah. Thank you, Sima, for asking the question. It's really important to know how to engage the community people when you have the opportunity to work with the government and the state directly. Since you were working on health and you talked about the project on supporting state governments in implementing approaches to community action on health, I would like to know first if the project is in the remote areas or in the city areas, where, because I mean, we all know that most of indigenous communities live in the marginalized area, but still there are some areas which areas have access to good hospital and other community health. So first thing, if there is no community health, you have to take the opportunity to initiate or to recommend the government to make some community center or community health center in that area. And another thing, in all the initiatives of the project, you may include the traditional leaders and then or community leaders if they have, including the youth and the women when you start working on the project. And I would request you to study first if there is any traditional traditional practice in terms of treatment, or if they have any indigenous medicine that have been practicing or taking for long. Because from in our country, in Bangladesh, especially in Chittagong Hill Tracts, we have seen there are so many indigenous medicines because there are many for some basic treatment, or there are some health issues that we take help from our indigenous medicinal priests or practitioners who have who know better about the indigenous medicine that comes from the nature, from the trees that we have, that's actually collected from the forest. So you may take the help from the community leaders, traditional leaders, and you should engage the youth, particularly women, as my colleague Arjun already mentioned about working on the hygiene issues, and particularly the menstruation issues for women. Maybe you could include the women or take some interviews of them, or you may have a separate discussion with the women, with the girls, or including the children, and of course with the community leaders. So I think if you can do these things that I just mentioned, this would be enough. And there are some rituals as well that we practice. So when you talk, because since you are working with the government, and definitely you will approach to the community, to those indigenous communities with scientific, medicine, or with science technology. So you just need to link the science and the indigenous practice in terms of medicine and treatment. Because if you just tell them to take some injection or some medicine for particular disease, they will not take this. You just have to make them understand, because we have experienced this kind of issues in Bangladesh, and the government authorities and the officials, they sometimes they complain that indigenous communities in their grassroots level, they don't want to take these medicines, these scientific medicines, they don't want to receive our treatment. That's why these diseases are happening in those indigenous areas. So you have to find a way to bridge between science and the traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples in terms of treatment and the medicinal treatment. So yeah, I wish you good luck for your project, and I would try to definitely help. I can see your email. Just to let me know if there is anything I and our other panelists and our indigenous representatives can help. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chandra. So I think that question has been perfectly answered already. So we have a few more questions, and this I would like to invite Mariana Waka to reply, to respond to this question. So the question is, I want to know, how can we work to change the mindset of Indigenous young persons from consumer mentality to a contributory mindset. Mariana, can you hear me? Hello?
Hi.
Yes.
Okay, that's a really great question. I mean, it's a big question to answer. So sorry, can you just repeat the question?
Yeah, I want to know, how can we work to change the mindset of Indigenous young persons from consumer mentality to a contributory mindset?
Yeah. It really comes down to education, because the child, even from our experience of working within the settlement and within the villages that we work in, this child is going to be influenced by their social environment. And right now, consumerism is a very big reality of what our modern society here, I'll speak for the Pacific, is. You have technology where children are just consumed by watching videos on YouTube, on all these kinds of things, you know, the kinds of activities that they're attracted to, you know, all the different kinds of things that that the media shows that they need to, that grasps their attention. So it really comes down to, from our experience, is that our young Indigenous children need time to have with their parents and with their communities, that the leaders within their communities are able to articulate to the children what values their people have. Because if this is not articulated to the next generation, to the children, then they are just going to be consumed by what the rest of the world tells them through our media, through social media and all those things. And that is one of the things that we are finding a big challenge here in Fiji. A lot of our children and young people, our youth, are so consumed in what the world is currently in, that even in a small town like Suva, you will have many children and many young people losing touch with their, not only their culture, but even their language, where English, where you are living in your country, but you cannot fluently speak your language, because English is just the main way to communicate here. And it's the kinds of values that the community and the families instill in our young people. If the community is strong, then the next generation is strong. And right now, with everything that's happening in our country, young Indigenous children and youth are, in many cases, are not getting the support from their community and families as to what our traditional, our Indigenous values are. And that's speaking for the cities. For the rural areas, they're in a much better position, because the practice of our Indigenous knowledge and traditions is still there. But if I think the key to that is to educate them, to remind them through creative ways, you know, through what we call talanoa, which is informal talk, just to sit down with the children and tell stories, remind them. The books that we have, that we share with the children during our book club, that is one way to share stories. But if we can continue to share the stories of our ancestors and of our Indigenous knowledge and information. I just heard one of the ladies just speak about traditional medicine. You know, nowadays for this generation, medicine equates to, you know, what is like Panadol, you know, all these manufactured medicines. Even for myself, that is what I usually turn to. But when I moved back to Fiji, I began to learn, actually, there are local medicinal plants that you take when you have a cold or when something is wrong with you, or when you have an injury. You can get a leaf and place it over the injury and it'll heal. So these are things that if we are not careful as Indigenous groups, we are likely to lose the mindsets, and not only the mindsets, but the soul of the next generation of Indigenous people. And that is something that we have to be really aware of. I'm still learning as we go along with this project, and there's still so much to learn. But I think that is what is at stake here, is the mindset and the soul of the next generation of Indigenous children and youth. If we do not take time to invest into their lives, because if we are not taking the time to speak into their lives and to guide them, then guess what? They're going to be guided by the different influences that they receive through the technological and information age that we currently are in. So that would be my thing, is time and education and creative engagement with our children and youth. Sometimes our youth can be like criticized for, not paying attention enough, not being focused enough. But I think it is our duty and our responsibility to come up with creative ways of engaging them and of communicating the urgency of uplifting and upholding our traditional, our Indigenous knowledge systems and stories for our young people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mariana, for such a complete reply. So the last question for all of you is, what is the criteria or procedure to become a member of Indigenous peoples? So this is more about criteria, and procedure for becoming Indigenous peoples community members. So if you have anything that's that you would like to answer, yes, please feel free. But you have 2 minutes to give answer to this. And this can be different for different countries. So as far as I'm concerned, there isn't a definition for 1, 2, 3. These are Indigenous peoples members, but there are some working definitions developed by different agencies commonly to apply worldwide. So please feel free to share what you have in mind. Yes, Arjun, are you going to share something?
Yeah. So making a response towards that.
Louder, please.
Okay, sound is coming right now. Is it okay? Okay. So if I make a response towards that question raised, in United Nations also, and along with other systems, United Nations systems, they produced a kind of characteristics, not the direct definition. What I know, the thing is that if you want to be what is the distinctive criteria to become an Indigenous people or something. So the thing is that, let me talk about in Bangladeshi context. So here the thing is that Indigenous peoples, those people will be called as Indigenous peoples who has kind of distinctive criteria, like traditionally they are distinctive from the other people, those who are how to say, those people, like if you talk about Bengali peoples over here, their number is high towards like 98%. Those people are residing over here. So traditionally we are different with them, not only even the traditional, it's if you talk about the food habits, and we have own cultural identities also there. And apart from that, we have also religion is another thing, but within that we have distinctive like how to say like the habit of communicating with other people. See, we have own like uh, codes, indigenous codes over there. Like Chakmaras is one of the uh, person who like deliver those kind of judgments. Like traditionally, we are doing that one also. And another one, we have own kind of controlling capacity. How to say? It's not coming towards me. Like there are lots of indigenous communities over here. The thing is that we connect in a way that the characteristics itself make themselves indigenous, as we live in hilly areas. And apart from that, we also contact with each other in different languages also. Within that, our habits or habitual things are also very different and distinctive towards the Bengali peoples. So I think that one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, brother. And sisters, would you like to add anything onto that?
I think Arjun has already covered so many things, but yeah, there is no specific definition on indigenous communities, but there are some characteristics through which we can identify that these people are indigenous. So yes, there is self-identification as indigenous peoples at the individual that should come from the individual level and definitely accepted by the community, as their member. So if the community say that he or she is not a member of us or this particular indigenous community, so that person cannot claim that he is not or she is not indigenous. And there is definitely historical continuity with the pre-colonial or settler societies. And also strong the indigenous communities have a strong link to their territories and the natural resources they have where they live actually. And yes, of course, we have distinct social, economic, political, and cultural systems that comes with our distinct language, culture, and our norms and values, the distinct beliefs. And we have the history of from non-dominant we form that non-dominant groups in society, and the indigenous communities is also resolved to maintain and reproduce our ancestral environments and the overall traditional system as distinctive peoples and communities. So these are some just criteria or characteristics we can say, but there is no universal specific definition on us indigenous communities.
Thank you very much, sister. So I think we have come to the final part. So I would like to invite, so Chandra, you have spoken already. So can you please continue giving your final round of remarks? You have 2.5 minutes to close this one, and then other speakers will follow. Yes, Chandra.
Thank you, sister. It was really nice to have those questions that are coming from different parts of the world, and it's really nice to hear the voice from also who are not indigenous, and they are trying to learn our about us and how to you know, have a good connection with us. And I especially would like to thank our sister Sima, who are working with the government. And because in our country, when some people who are not indigenous, most of who are not indigenous and works with the government, they you know, it may be intentionally or unintentionally, but most of the time intentionally, they don't take you know, they don't follow the free, prior and informed consent while implementing in any project in indigenous territories. So it's a good start and good practice, I must say, that to discuss and ask about, you know, about from indigenous communities. You know, for the global action and the, you know, the youth engagement for the global action, I believe that we have to start from the grassroots area, and then to reach the, you know, our global or international arena to establish our rights within our respective countries and in international area as well. So all I believe that if we practice and keep you know, keep practicing and try to sustain our traditional knowledge, our good practices, our norms and values that our ancestors have been you know, have taught us, and we just need to practice and have respect for those. And we have to, we the indigenous youth have to know our rights, because if we don't know about our rights, we won't be able to claim to our governments or in the international arena. And we have to be united. And one, I see one, we had one question from someone that how to, you know, engage our indigenous youth from, you know, from the interest, you know, because some are more consumer than to, you know, have the mentality to contribute. So we need to create an environment where we have, you know, where we determine to contribute more in the society than to consume. For that, we have to create that environment. And our one speaker already mentioned that, you know, we have to keep practicing the storytelling about our indigenous leaders, about the story of struggle of our indigenous elders. So for that, we have to be united, whether within our countries, also in the international level, in the global level, we have to be united from starting from the individual, you know, to all the with all the organizations and the network that we have in the international level. And we I realize that one person cannot do everything. And you know, there are many barriers that for which, you know, even if that individual have will, they cannot participate in all things, especially in the political you know, area. So maybe we can contribute to our community through cultural practices, through, you know, cultural performance, and through economic development, through contributing in our environment, also contributing in different kinds of sectors in the society. So maybe gathering all those things, we can be united and you know, be one, you know, in the global arena, with the context of global area. So let's just start from the grassroots level, but we have to have the goal that where we can all be together and make all our voices a common voice to establish indigenous youth rights, to establish our indigenous people's rights in all level, you know, where there is no discrimination. And so we can you know, urge our government to you know, practice the justice and give the justice to all indigenous victims we have in every country. So let's just hope and say that long live Indigenous people's solidarity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chandra, for the remarks. Arjun, please, the floor is yours.
As we discussed during the whole program, in this webinar, I felt that this is one of my very first webinar I have attended so far. So it's really good to see you everyone and talking with people from different world, different countries and other territories, especially those indigenous peoples. And when I got to know like these people are working together, it feels good to be working as indigenous youth also. And what I see is, I feel if we communicate each other in a productive way, I think our rights and our issues will be very will be see a kind of solution towards nearby the future. I feel that way. So thank you all, and I would like to see you everyone again somewhere in the world and anywhere this kind of webinars, whatever. Anyway, thank you, and thank you organizers and the panelists also and the host, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Arjun. May I invite Mariana? Hello, Mariana.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, especially to the organizers for organizing this event. It is early in the morning here in Fiji, so I apologize that I came on a little late this morning. I was thinking that it was later at 5 a.m. But I think this is an important space that is being created online for Indigenous young people around the world to be able to get in touch and communicate and share stories with one another, because that is one of the things that help us to keep going on the journey. Sometimes this journey of speaking up on Indigenous rights can be a lonely journey, as well as one with many challenges. But when we hear of one another's journeys and the ways that we overcome certain things and the fights that still the mountains that still need to be overcome, I think it encourages each and every one of us to continue with this, especially as peoples within our own countries who are often marginalized or silenced in various ways. I think it's encouraging to continue to have these kinds of conversations, and to, I think, just to continue to say that we should always remember that we are the future ancestors for the current generations. And so that is also part of our duty, that as much as we are speaking within the regional and international communities, that we are also looking at our grassroots to ensure that there are young people who are coming up who will be empowered and will be empowered to step upon our shoulders to continue the work when our time is finished. So yeah, thank you everyone for the stories that you've shared and the information you've shared this morning. It encourages us in the Pacific to continue with the work that we are doing.
Thank you very much, sister. So thanks to all the speakers for the great interactions, and also those to the participants for raising very interesting and very important questions for all of us to learn. So now we have come to the final session. So we're gonna hear our vote of thanks, synthesis, and call for actions for that, I would like to invite Ms. Soni Rai, Board of Directors member of YFEED. So, Ms. Soni Rai.
Thank you, Mai. Hello, everyone. Namaskar. Assalamu alaikum. Minglava, Sikamu to everyone. First of all, thank you to each and every one of you who are here with us today in today's webinar. And thank you for your valuable time. Our special thanks goes to our panelists and our moderator who have been helping us and supporting us and sharing their great insights. I would like to thank you on the behalf of YFEED Foundation and from my personal side to you once again. I'm Soni Rai, working as a board of director at Youth for Environment Education and Development Foundation, YFEED Foundation in Kathmandu, Nepal. Now, talking about today's webinar, all of the panelists have highlighted very important issues and important dimensions in different areas in their regional areas and at the global area. So now I would like to quickly talk about, to quickly sum up the panelist speech. There are 6% of world population that have been living in the territory, and they inhabit houses 80% of the planet's biodiversity. So now I would like to highlight this thing said by Mr. Chakma. Mr. Chakma talked about the Bangladesh issues. He said there is a lack of indigenous people's rights in Bangladesh, and there are many problems during this amid COVID-19 period, such as the people have not received their basic needs. They have not got water, food, and communication. So that is a big problem in Bangladesh. And he also said that all the fund and resources which have to be received by indigenous people, they are not given on time, they are not received on time. So the government is like they are giving, but they are not providing on time, and they face they have to fight for their rights. So that's a major problem in Bangladesh. Similarly, Mystica highlighted the economic, health, and environmental aspects of indigenous people. She raised a very good question. Are the youths of today concerned about their human rights, about their indigenous rights, and about their safety, and also about do they know about the crisis they are facing? So that's a very important question. She said about the unemployment problem happening in the world. Though there are many facilities given to the people, but still the indigenous people face discrimination, such as in employment areas, and also in different political areas. They are facing numerous issues. She she talked about the shortage of food during this COVID-19 period, and she highlighted the importance of consuming and cultivating our own food. We should cultivate our own food. Nowadays, the many younger generations do not know how to cultivate the food and also to make the traditional indigenous dishes. They have lack of knowledge. So we should highlight, and we should focus our younger generations to learn new skills during this COVID-19 period about the indigenous practices and knowledge. Then moving to another part, Ms. Tripura said about the various problems, and also she highlighted that we must learn about our traditional roots. We must go and learn what our ancestors have taught us. So in that way, we can find creative solutions to our problems. Similarly, Ms. Walker said that she highlighted about the book club, which is providing education and empowerment to the children of Fiji, and especially of prioritized to the squatter settlement areas where the children do not have good education, who do not have their basic needs. So the book club supports and provide educational resource materials to the children so they can learn and they can imagine, and surely one day their imaginations can form into an action. That's a very important initiative doing by book club. Now, at the end, I would like to urge all the people all around the world to learn about the indigenous practices, to learn about the indigenous rights, to learn and focus about their all the actions doing by humanitarian and all the indigenous institutions, partners, and what the government is doing. They should have an interest and learn from it. Similarly, I would urge all the youths to take an action. They should also be involved in all the in the indigenous institutions to get an education about the modern and traditional indigenous practices. They will surely get the right knowledge and good skills from that. Further, I would like to add, we should, as an individual, we should allocate our resources properly. We should know about we should know about our food, our behavior. We should know about all the things happening around us. So that's how we can balance the supply and demand part. Similarly, I would like to urge all the NGOs, INGOs, stakeholders, and the government to combine together for this global action of indigenous people. The indigenous voice should be heard. The indigenous voice should take an action for themselves and for for all the youths around their circle. So please work towards your goal, and don't forget your roots. Always learn a skill, always be creative, and practice your indigenous rights and all the knowledge you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sony, for such a great, how should I say, synthesis, and you have covered all the discussions very well. So thank you very much, and I hope that all the discussions and all the summary points, main points, key points will be shared by YFEED again to everyone who participated today. So we have come to the end of the session. And we would like to close by saying thanks, millions of thanks to everyone who participated in our webinar, especially to our speakers and all the participants for being with us for such the whole discussion. And then we know that this time everyone is very busy with all these different webinars, online meetings, but despite your busy schedule, thanks very much for giving us your time and listening to us till the end of the program. And we look forward to seeing you again soon with other series of webinars from YFEED. So thank you very much. Have a great evening, and we wish you all safety and health during the COVID-19 outbreak, and hope to see you all in person once the COVID goes away. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.